I never imagined adulthood would feel this suffocating. It's like waking up every day with a weight on your chest, not from any single thing but from 1,000 tiny pressures that pile up relentlessly. The cost of living feels like an ever-rising tide, and no matter how hard I paddle, I'm barely staying afloat. When I was younger, I used to think getting a stable job meant freedom. I imagined paying my own bills, maybe traveling a bit, saving up for a future that felt wide open. But reality hit hard. The rent alone gobbles up more than half of my paycheck. Groceries, utilities, transportation, student loans, everything feels like it's outpacing what I earn. My income increases maybe once a year, if that, and usually only by a small percentage. Meanwhile, prices for everything, from food to gas to health insurance, go up constantly, often faster than I can keep up with. It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet, it's the daily, small sacrifices that grind me down. Last week, I skipped a doctor's appointment because the copay felt too steep. I convinced myself it was fine, that I could tough it out. But the nagging worry that I might be ignoring something important follows me around. Eating out or grabbing coffee with friends has become a rare treat, more a luxury than a simple pleasure. Instead, I find myself calculating costs in my head. Can I afford this? Will this mean I have to skip something else? Bills arrive like clockwork, and each one feels like a reminder that I'm trapped in a system designed to drain every last cent without offering any real relief. It's the rent that hits hardest. The landlord raises it every year, justifying it by inflation or maintenance costs, but it never feels fair. I share a tiny apartment with a roommate to split costs, but even then, I'm constantly worried about losing my job or facing an unexpected expense. A broken phone screen or a car repair could mean weeks of tight budgeting and stress. I try to save, but the amount left over after essentials is often zero or close to it. Emotionally, it's exhausting. Some days I feel like I'm walking through a fog, just going through the motions to survive rather than living. Anxiety is a constant companion, the kind that wakes you up at night thinking about bills, about whether you'll make rent next month, about what would happen if something went wrong. There's also a deep shame in feeling like you're failing at the basics of adult life. I've had to ask for help from family a few times, and while they're supportive, I hate feeling dependent. I want to stand on my own, but it feels like the deck is stacked against me. I watch social media and see people my age posting about vacations, new gadgets, or moving into bigger apartments. Sometimes I wonder if I'm invisible, like my struggles don't count because I'm not succeeding in the traditional sense. That makes me feel lonely, like I'm carrying a burden no one else quite understands. I don't talk about money much because it feels taboo, like admitting to financial stress is admitting weakness or failure. But honestly, I'm tired of pretending it's all okay. Coping takes its own form. I try to find small moments of joy, a walk in the park, reading a book from the library, cooking a meal at home instead of ordering takeout. These little things keep me grounded, remind me there's life beyond numbers and bills. Sometimes, when things get too overwhelming, I journal or write down my feelings. It helps, even if only a little, to get it out of my head and onto paper. I've learned to be kinder to myself, reminding myself that I'm doing the best I can in a system that's not built to support people like me. The hardest part is what I've had to postpone. I used to dream about traveling, going back to school for a degree I'm passionate about, maybe even buying a place of my own someday. But those dreams seem further away with each passing month. Instead, I budget tightly just to keep the lights on and the fridge stocked. I've shelved plans to pursue hobbies or take courses that could help me grow professionally because I just can't justify the cost. It feels like I'm stuck in pause mode, waiting for a break that never comes. Sometimes I imagine what life would be like if things were different. If wages matched the rising cost of living. If there were more affordable housing. If the economy didn't feel rigged so heavily against people like me who were trying to work hard and get by. Would I still feel trapped, or could I breathe easier? These thoughts bring both hope and frustration because change feels so slow, almost impossible at times. But despite everything, I hold on to a thread of hope. Hope that the small steps I take today, budgeting carefully, building skills, seeking support when I need it, will eventually lead to a better place. Maybe not overnight, maybe not this year, but someday. I want to believe that my dreams aren't lost, only delayed. For now, I keep moving forward, even if it's just one careful step at a time. Because giving up isn't an option, even if the system makes it feel like it is. I'm more than my financial struggles, and I'm learning to fight for the future I deserve, even if it takes longer than I ever thought it would. That's the story I'm living, day by day, honest, vulnerable, and real. And I'm still here. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. Sometimes I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, the faint hum of the city leaking in through my cracked window. The quiet feels heavy, like it's pressing down on my chest. I'm not alone in this feeling. There's this constant buzz in the back of my mind, a mixture of worry and exhaustion that's been my companion for years now. It's the weight of living with financial pressure so relentless, it feels like drowning in slow motion. I'm 27, and honestly, I never imagined I'd be this stuck. When I was a kid, I thought I'd have a stable job by now, maybe a little apartment of my own, a savings account that didn't terrify me every time I checked the balance. But here I am, still renting a cramped room in a noisy, overpriced part of town, wondering how I'll stretch my paycheck far enough to cover rent, groceries, and the endless bills that pile up like bricks on my back. The economic environment we're all swimming in right now isn't just tough, it's crushing. Prices go up faster than I can catch my breath. Rent climbs every year, utilities spike, and the cost of food seems to double without any warning. Meanwhile, my income feels like it's running on a treadmill set to slow but steady. Every raise I get is barely enough to keep pace with inflation, which means I'm not really getting ahead, I'm just trying not to fall further behind. It's this awful feeling of being trapped in a system where expenses grow faster than I can earn, like I'm on a hamster wheel with no way off. I have a full-time job at a small marketing firm, and while I'm grateful to have work, the paycheck is just enough to keep the lights on and the fridge stocked with the bare minimum. I pick up freelance gigs when I can, but even that extra money disappears quickly: car repairs, medical copays, unexpected expenses that hit without warning. There's no room for extra anymore. No spontaneous nights out, no new clothes, no vacations. Even simple things like treating myself to a coffee at a cafe feel like luxuries I can't justify. The pressure seeps into every part of my life. I catch myself counting pennies at the grocery store, choosing between the cheaper brand or the one I actually want. I avoid the doctor because the copay means skipping a week of groceries. I'm always calculating, adjusting, prioritizing. It's exhausting. It's lonely. Sometimes I feel ashamed that I can't do better, even though I know the system is rigged against people like me. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. There are days when the stress feels unbearable, and I just want to shut down completely. Anxiety claws at me in waves, making it hard to sleep or focus. Other times, there's this dull, numbing sadness, like I'm mourning all the things I've had to give up. I've had to postpone dreams that once felt so tangible, going back to school, traveling, even saving for a home. Those hopes seem to recede further into the distance every month. But I also have moments of fierce determination. I remind myself why I'm pushing through: the desire for stability, for dignity, for a life where I'm not just surviving but thriving. I hold on to the small victories: paying off a credit card balance, finding a way to cook a healthy meal on a tight budget, connecting with friends who understand and support me. These moments keep me going when the weight feels too heavy. Coping is a constant, daily effort. I rely on routines that bring a little peace: morning walks, journaling, reading stories from others who get what I'm going through. I've learned to ask for help when I need it, even though it's hard to admit vulnerability. There's a quiet strength in that, in recognizing I don't have to carry this alone. Sometimes, I dream about a different life, a life where I'm not scared every month about making rent, where I can save money without guilt, where I have the freedom to explore my passions and invest in my future. It feels distant now, but it's still there, a flicker of hope that maybe one day the system will work for me, not against me. For now, I keep moving forward, one day at a time, carrying the weight of these pressures but also the quiet, stubborn hope that things can change. Maybe that's enough, for now. Every morning, I wake up with this heavy knot in my stomach, and it's not because I'm anxious about some big event or looming deadline. It's just the relentless, quiet dread of money, or rather, the lack of it. Not just money itself, but what it means in my life, how it shapes every tiny decision I make, and the constant, exhausting battle to keep up in a system that seems designed to hold me down. I'm 27, working a full-time job that, on paper, should be enough to live comfortably. But enough is a cruel joke. Rent alone swallows half my paycheck, and that's if I'm lucky enough not to have unexpected bills. Utilities, groceries, transportation, they all chip away at what's left until I'm left staring at a number on my bank app that barely feels real, like some abstract score in a game I never agreed to play. Every day feels like walking a tightrope over a pit that's slowly getting wider. The cost of living keeps rising, faster than my income can. Prices for everything, food, gas, healthcare, even the most basic services, creep up relentlessly, like they're in a race with my paycheck. And I'm losing. It's a constant reminder that no matter how hard I work, I'm still stuck in place, or worse, sliding backward. I've had to make so many hard choices, too many for someone my age. There was a time I dreamed of traveling, of seeing the world beyond the city skyline that feels more like a cage than a home. I imagined nights in small cafes in Europe, afternoons lost wandering through museums or quiet parks. But those dreams? They've been shelved indefinitely, gathering dust next to unpaid bills and the growing emergency fund I'll probably never have. Even the things I once enjoyed, grabbing dinner with friends, going to concerts, picking up a new book, have become luxuries I can't afford. I've become an expert in saying no, not because I don't want to be around the people I love, but because every yes is a tiny dent in my already fragile finances. There's this gnawing loneliness that comes with it, a feeling that I'm watching life happen from behind a thick, invisible glass. Emotionally, it's exhausting. I try to stay positive, to remind myself this is temporary, but that feels more like a mantra than reality. There's an almost constant undercurrent of shame that I can't make it like everyone else seems to, shame for needing help, shame for not having my life figured out by now. Some nights, I lie awake wondering if this is what adulthood is supposed to feel like, a never-ending grind that slowly erodes your hope. Coping with this pressure is a daily battle. I find small comforts where I can, an extra hour spent reading instead of scrolling social media, a weekend hike in the park instead of a pricey bar with friends, cooking meals at home from scratch even when it's easier to just order takeout. Sometimes I journal, trying to untangle the mess of thoughts and fears in my head. Other times, I just try to breathe through the anxiety, reminding myself that I'm more than the balance in my bank account. There are days when the weight feels almost unbearable, like I'm trapped in a cage that tightens with every new bill or surprise expense. The system around me, the economy, the job market, the housing crisis, isn't broken in a way that affects just me. It's a sprawling machine that's tilted so heavily against people like me, and it's easy to feel invisible in it, like my struggles are just a footnote in a story much bigger and more indifferent. Still, I hold on to some flicker of hope. I dream of a future where I'm not constantly stressed about money, where I can save enough to move somewhere that feels like home, where I can pursue passions without fear of financial ruin. I want to believe that with enough perseverance and maybe a little luck, those dreams are still possible. But I also know that hope can be fragile, easily crushed by yet another unexpected expense or pay cut. For now, I keep going, showing up to work, making meals stretch a little further, keeping the lights off a bit longer to save on electricity. I remind myself that surviving this is a kind of strength, even if it doesn't feel like it. I'm learning to be patient with myself, to accept that progress might be slow and imperfect. This isn't the life I envisioned in my 20s. But it's the one I'm living. And as vulnerable and raw as it feels, I'm trying to be honest about it, to myself, and maybe one day, to someone else who feels the same. Because if there's one thing I've realized, it's that I'm not alone in this struggle, and maybe, just maybe, that makes it a little easier to bear. That's my story. Not the shiny highlight reel I once imagined, but the messy, real, everyday fight to find peace and hope in a world that feels set against me. I used to dream about owning a little bookstore cafe, something cozy with plants hanging in the windows, the smell of espresso and old paper mixing in the air. It's funny, really, how specific that dream was, how real it felt. Now, I count change to decide if I can afford a second coffee in a week. Dreams shrink like that, when the math of your life doesn't work anymore. I'm 27. I live in a one-bedroom apartment that costs more than half of what I make each month. The wallpaper is peeling, the faucet leaks, and the walls are thin enough that I know more about my neighbor's dating life than I should. I graduated 5 years ago with a degree in communications, hopeful and wide-eyed, convinced I'd find something steady, something decent. I have a job now, too, actually. One is as a copywriter for a mid-sized marketing agency. The other is bartending on weekends. Neither pays well enough alone, and together they barely keep me afloat. Every month is a game of rearranging numbers. Rent. Utilities. Groceries. Student loans. Health insurance. Transit. That last one stings. I can't afford a car, so I rely on an unreliable bus system that adds an hour to every commute. If one thing goes wrong, a cavity, a cracked phone screen, a friend's birthday dinner, I'm off balance for weeks. There's this constant buzzing in the back of my mind, a low-level anxiety that never really goes away. I wake up thinking about money. I fall asleep thinking about money. Every decision runs through that filter. Can I afford this? Can I make it to payday? Should I skip a meal or just get something cheap and terrible? It wasn't always like this. My parents weren't wealthy, but we got by. I grew up believing in the value of hard work, in the idea that doing things right, going to college, getting a job, meant I'd be okay. But the world now feels like it operates on rules no one told us about. Inflation has made everything harder. Rent goes up every year. My paycheck doesn't. Groceries that used to cost $60 now run me close to $90, and that's with cutting coupons and buying generic brands. The worst part is how it changes your sense of self. I used to think of myself as capable, independent, someone with drive. Now I feel small. Stuck. There's shame in this, even though I know it's not just me. Most of my friends are in similar boats, working gig jobs, freelancing, juggling multiple part-time roles, going without health coverage, skipping doctor visits, skipping meals. We joke about it sometimes, dark humor is our therapy. But underneath the laughs is a shared exhaustion. We're tired of scraping by. We're tired of pretending we're okay. There are moments I catch myself daydreaming again. I'll walk past a cute storefront and imagine what my bookstore cafe would have looked like. What books I'd carry. What music would play. But it always ends in a kind of ache, because right now, I'm not even close. I had to postpone grad school. I put off moving to a city I actually like. Dating is complicated because who wants to build a life with someone who's constantly worried about overdrafting their account? I cope by making small spaces of joy wherever I can find them. I borrow books from the library and lose myself in fiction. I take long walks with music in my ears and no destination. I have a thrifted kettle that makes tea feel like a ritual. I journal, sometimes furiously, other times quietly, trying to capture the moments I want to remember, not just the stress, but the tiny victories too. Paying off a credit card. Making rent on time. Saying no to something and feeling okay about it. Sometimes, I think about what I would do if I weren't constantly budgeting for survival. I'd travel. I'd invest in myself, in learning new things. I'd go back to therapy. I'd save. I'd start that bookstore cafe, even if it was just a pop-up stall at first. And I'd breathe easier. That's maybe the saddest part, that I don't remember what that feels like. To breathe without doing math in my head. I'm not giving up, though. Even when the system feels like it's rigged, even when it feels like my 20s are slipping through my fingers, I hold on to the belief that things can shift. Maybe not overnight, maybe not drastically, but even a little would mean everything. A raise. A better job. A moment of stability. Until then, I keep going. I get up. I clock in. I budget. I hope. And I write things like this, not because it fixes anything, but because naming the weight makes it a little easier to carry. I wake up every morning to the shrill reminder that my life is not mine anymore, it's owned by bills, rent, debt, and a dozen other tiny fees that chip away at me like waves grinding down a cliff. My alarm goes off at 6:15 a.m., not because I'm ambitious or productive, but because I need those extra 30 minutes to convince myself to face the day. I'm 27. I live in a studio apartment the size of a decent walk-in closet. It's in a part of town where sirens are just background music and a corner store sells singles of toilet paper. I work full-time at a marketing agency, and I do gig work in the evenings, delivering food, tutoring online, sometimes even dog walking if someone tips well. I make just enough to keep my head above water, which means I'm constantly treading, never swimming. The economy? It's a giant machine with gears that crush people like me, people who studied, who followed the rules, who believed the lie that if we worked hard, we'd be okay. I have a degree in communications. I graduated with honors. I remember the day I got my diploma, my mom cried, said I was the first in the family to finish college. I believed that meant something. But rent's gone up 40% since I moved here, groceries cost more every month, and my salary has stayed frozen, like a cruel joke. Every choice I make is laced with anxiety. Do I buy fresh produce or stick to canned beans and pasta again this week? Can I afford to go see my friend's band play, or will that $12 cover next week's bus fare? Do I fill my prescription now, or wait until the next paycheck and hope I don't have a flare-up before then? I used to love cooking. I'd spend Sundays trying new recipes, filling the kitchen with the smell of garlic and rosemary, making enough food to share. Now, I treat meals like fuel stops, cheap, fast, and forgettable. I don't even buy the ingredients I used to love anymore. Avocados, basil, olive oil that doesn't taste like plastic, it all feels like a life I can't touch anymore. The hardest part isn't the money itself. It's the constant pressure, the never-ending math I do in my head every day. It's the way I shrink parts of myself to make room for bills and responsibilities. I used to write poetry. Now, I just write invoices. Emotionally, I feel like I'm standing in a glass room watching other people live. I scroll through social media and see friends traveling, buying homes, getting married. I don't resent them, I just don't understand how they're doing it. Am I doing something wrong? Did I miss some crucial memo on how to be an adult in this world? I'm in therapy, thankfully through a sliding scale clinic, but even that's a monthly calculation. Do I need to process my burnout this month, or do I need to buy winter boots? I joke that adulthood is just learning which part of yourself to neglect next. The dreams I've had to postpone are like ghosts that visit when I'm too tired to block them out. I wanted to open a small cafe someday, somewhere cozy with books and good coffee and the kind of lighting that makes people feel safe. I used to sketch out designs and write out menus. Now, those notebooks collect dust under my bed. Dating? Laughable. I can't even commit to a streaming subscription, let alone a relationship. Who wants to build a life with someone whose idea of a treat is buying name-brand cereal? I don't even think about kids anymore. I used to want them, used to imagine a home filled with laughter and tiny shoes by the door. But how can I bring someone into a world where I can barely take care of myself? How do you explain to a child that love isn't enough to keep the lights on? I cope in small, almost invisible ways. I take long walks at night, when the city is quieter, and I can pretend I'm just a character in a story, someone who's going through the hard part before everything gets better. I listen to music that reminds me of who I used to be. I text my best friend every night just to say still here, and she replies with the same. I keep a jar of coins on my dresser labeled someday. I put whatever's left at the end of the week in there, even if it's just 47 cents. I know it won't buy me freedom, but it keeps the dream alive. I want to believe that something will change. That someday the system will crack open and people like me will be able to breathe again. I want to believe that we're not just disposable parts in a machine, that our creativity and love and energy matter more than profit margins. But until then, I wake up. I work. I hope. I remind myself that I'm not lazy, or stupid, or broken. I'm just trying to survive in a world that asks too much and gives too little. And that, somehow, has to be enough for now. I used to think adulthood would feel different, like a switch would flip once I got a full-time job or started paying my own bills. Instead, it feels like I just slipped into a heavier version of life, one where everything costs more than I expected, and where every decision seems to carry more weight than it should. I'm 27, and I've been living in a small one-bedroom apartment just outside the city for the past 3 years. Rent has gone up every year, sometimes by just $50, sometimes by $200. Each time, I swallow it. Moving costs too much, and rent everywhere else is the same or worse. My job in digital marketing pays okay, better than minimum wage, worse than what any spreadsheet says I need to actually live. I used to cook creative meals, take dance classes, and dream about traveling. Now, I count every grocery dollar. I buy store-brand oatmeal, frozen veggies, and the same bag of rice that stretches for weeks. I've become weirdly proud of how far I can stretch $40. I skip breakfast most days and tell myself it's intermittent fasting. It's not. It's budgeting. The worst part isn't the budgeting, though. It's the pressure of knowing that one unexpected expense could send everything spiraling. When my car battery died last month, I cried, not because I didn't have the money, but because using my emergency fund felt like a betrayal of future me, who might need it even more. I walked to work for a week while I waited for payday. There's a tightness in my chest that never fully goes away. It flares up when I get a text about another friend's engagement or vacation photos on Instagram. Not because I'm jealous, but because I'm scared I'll never be able to afford those milestones. My friends talk about buying homes, having kids. I think about my student loans, which I've been deferring for so long that the interest has ballooned. Sometimes I wonder if I'll be paying them off into my 50s. Dating's hard. Not just emotionally, financially. How do you casually date when going out for drinks can burn through your food budget for the week? I cancel plans sometimes, make excuses about work or being tired, when the truth is I'm too broke to split the check or too ashamed to admit it. I've learned to smile and say next time's on me, knowing there may not be a next time. Coping looks like small rituals. A long walk after work. Borrowing books from the library. Playing old video games I bought years ago. I find calm in routine, even if it sometimes feels like I'm looping through the same day over and over again. I journal. I meditate. I tell myself this is temporary. The hardest part, honestly, is what I've had to let go of. I wanted to go back to school, get a master's degree in environmental policy. I wanted to work in sustainability, maybe even policy reform. But school costs money I don't have, and unpaid internships aren't an option when rent's due and food's not optional. I still read about climate change, write blog posts no one sees. I volunteer at a local co-op garden on weekends. It's not nothing, but it's not what I pictured when I was in college, full of hope. Sometimes I dream of running away. Not dramatically, just to a small town with lower rent, slower days. But then I remember how much I rely on public transit, how my job is here, how starting over costs more than staying stuck. What keeps me going? Honestly, stubbornness. And the people who understand. The coworker who shares her lunch when I forget mine. The barista who slipped me a free muffin on a day I looked extra tired. My little brother, who still thinks I'm cool because I live in the city, who doesn't yet understand that my apartment is small and the paint is peeling and I sleep with socks on because the heat's unreliable. I want him to think it's possible to chase dreams and still pay the bills. Some days are better than others. Some days I look around my cluttered little apartment and feel proud. I did this. I'm surviving. But most days, I feel like I'm trying to outrun a treadmill that keeps speeding up. I'm not asking for a miracle. I just want a little room to breathe. A life where I don't have to choose between dental work and a winter coat. A world where the cost of living doesn't outpace the value of my labor. I want to dream without guilt. To plan without fear. Until then, I keep showing up. To work, to myself, to this life I'm building even when it feels like it's made of sand. Because maybe, just maybe, something stronger will come out of all this pressure. I used to think I'd have my life together by 25. Not in the perfect white picket fence kind of way, but at least stable, maybe a decent job with health insurance, enough money to take a weekend trip without guilt, maybe even start saving for something big. Now I'm 27, and I measure success in whether I can pay rent and buy groceries in the same week. Every morning starts with the same calculation: what can I afford today? I work full-time at a marketing agency, but it's mostly remote freelance contracts that vary from month to month. The pay isn't terrible, but it's inconsistent, and the cost of living has been sprinting ahead of me for years. My rent alone eats half of what I make in a good month. On bad months, I dip into what little savings I have, or worse, the credit card. I used to go to the grocery store with ideas, meals I wanted to cook. Now I go with a budget and a calculator on my phone. I pick up items and immediately do the math: can I afford eggs this week? Is $5 too much for a block of cheese? What's the cheapest source of protein I can get that isn't just another can of beans? I walk past the produce aisle sometimes, eyeing the bright strawberries or avocados like they're luxury goods. I've started to ration everything: shampoo, toothpaste, even how often I wash my clothes. I wait until I have nothing clean left. Doing laundry in my building costs $2.75 per load. It doesn't sound like much, but when you're choosing between that and getting a bus pass for the week, it's a calculation. Everything is a calculation. I feel tired a lot. Not just from work, though I do work a lot, both at my desk job and sometimes picking up weekend shifts at a bookstore. The tiredness is deeper. It's in my bones, in the constant tension in my shoulders, the dull throb behind my eyes. It's the weight of decisions I don't want to make anymore. It's the exhaustion of not knowing how long I can keep this up. Social life? It exists in texts and DMs. My friends will invite me out: drinks, a concert, brunch. I almost always say no. Not because I don't want to go, but because I can't afford a $14 cocktail or a $25 ticket, let alone the Uber home. I make excuses: I'm tired, got a deadline, maybe next time. But inside, I feel ashamed. Like I'm falling behind, like I'm the poor friend nobody says out loud they're worried about. Dating is a joke. How do you show up as your best self when you're mentally calculating how much the appetizer costs and whether you can cover it without overdrafting? I've canceled dates just because the thought of having to pretend I'm okay when I'm really just anxious about my bank balance felt impossible. I've had dreams, you know? I wanted to travel. Not just Instagram travel, but real, slow, intentional travel, to live somewhere else for a while, learn a language, feel small in a city I don't know. I used to imagine myself in a tiny flat in Lisbon or Tokyo or Montreal, writing in the mornings and exploring in the evenings. Now I'm 27 and still living in a studio apartment with paper-thin walls, one window, and a radiator that screams like it's haunted every winter. Even the smaller dreams feel distant now. I wanted to go back to school, get my master's degree. I wanted to save for a dog. I wanted to buy a bike. But everything is a trade-off. If I put money into savings, I might not have enough for rent. If I take a weekend off, I miss out on income. There's no room for error, no buffer, just a constant hustle to stay afloat. Sometimes I fantasize about what I'd do if I won the lottery, not for the mansion or fancy cars, but just to not feel this way anymore. Just to breathe. To pay my bills and still have enough left over to go out without guilt. To fix my teeth. To buy gifts for people I love. To stop thinking about money every waking moment. There are moments when I feel resentful. I look at the older generations, the ones who bought homes in their 20s, who had jobs with pensions and affordable healthcare, who could support families on one income. I know it wasn't easy for everyone. I don't romanticize the past. But I also know that the game feels rigged now in a way that's hard to explain to someone who hasn't played it. I cope the best I can. I journal. I go on walks, even when it's cold. I make playlists for my moods. I talk to friends who get it. We laugh about how broke we are, because if we didn't laugh, we might cry. I make art when I have the energy. I write down my dreams, even if I don't know when I'll reach them. I hold on to hope like it's a thread, frayed and thin, but still there. Some days are better than others. There are little victories, when a client pays early, when I find a coupon, when I cook a good meal from cheap ingredients. I celebrate those. They remind me I'm still here. Still trying. Still dreaming, even if those dreams are quieter now, even if I whisper them to myself in the dark. I don't know what the future holds. I don't have a 5-year plan anymore. But I haven't given up. I still believe there's a version of life where I feel safe, where I don't wake up in fear. I still want that Lisbon flat. I still want a dog. I still want days that aren't dictated by dollars. And even if it takes me longer to get there, I'll keep going. One calculated day at a time. I'm 27, and I used to think by now I'd be somewhere else, figuratively and literally. I imagined having a job I didn't dread waking up for, maybe a modest condo with a plant or two I could keep alive, and enough breathing room in my bank account to take a spontaneous weekend trip if I wanted. Nothing extravagant. Just enough. But enough keeps slipping further away. Every morning, I wake up to the sound of my cracked phone buzzing with calendar notifications. Rent due next week, student loan autopay tomorrow, credit card minimum today. I hit snooze, not just on the alarm, but on the stress, knowing I can't really snooze any of it. It's just a pause before the panic. I live in a small studio apartment in the city. It's the kind of place you can clean by spinning in a slow circle with a Swiffer. The rent is more than half my paycheck, but it's cheap for this neighborhood. I used to split with a roommate, but when they moved out, I couldn't find someone fast enough to take their place. And breaking the lease meant losing my deposit, and I couldn't afford that either. So I picked up a second job at a cafe on weekends. My main job is in marketing for a small startup. They sell eco-friendly pet accessories. The company culture is chill, read, no benefits, vague pay raises, and pizza Fridays instead of health insurance. I took the job after 6 months of unemployment post-college. Back then, I was grateful. Now, it feels like I'm treading water in a pool slowly filling with cement. Inflation doesn't knock politely. It barges in. Groceries cost more each month, like the store is daring me to try and cook at home instead of defaulting to ramen. I used to enjoy cooking. Actually, back in college, it felt like a form of self-care. Now it's a math problem I can't solve. If I buy fresh vegetables, I risk them going bad before I have time to cook. If I buy cheap processed stuff, I feel it in my body, more sluggish, more anxious. Food shouldn't be this loaded. I track every dollar. I've memorized which days of the month I can afford to fill up my gas tank, and which days I'm hoping it holds out. A small emergency, a parking ticket, a flat tire, a sore tooth, can set me back weeks. Once, my debit card declined while I was buying toilet paper and a granola bar. The cashier gave me a look that I still think about. I joked about it, laughed it off. Oh, guess that's a sign I should go on a juice cleanse. But inside, I felt like I was shrinking. Emotionally, it's like carrying a weight no one else can see. I feel guilty when I avoid friends' invites to dinner or movies. Not because I don't want to go, but because saying I can't afford it feels like peeling back a layer of shame. I lie sometimes. Say I'm tired. Say I'm busy. And it's not even that I think they'd judge me, I just can't bear saying it out loud. Dating? Forget it. How do you show up to a first date knowing your bank account is -$15 and you're praying your paycheck hits before your rent check clears? Romance, like travel or hobbies or dreams, feels like a luxury for people in a different tax bracket. I wanted to go to grad school. I still do, sometimes, in quiet moments. I used to daydream about working in public policy or nonprofit advocacy, something that mattered. But how can I justify more debt when I'm still chipping away at the last round? Even my dreams have a price tag now. So I've deferred. I'll figure it out later, I tell myself. Later never feels closer. My parents try to help when they can, but they're not in a much better place. They worked blue-collar jobs their whole lives and retired with more pride than savings. Asking them for money feels like taking a piece of their security away. They've already sacrificed too much. Some days, I get through by fantasizing about a windfall. Not a lottery win, that feels too far-fetched. Just a stable job with benefits. A rent-controlled apartment. A used car that doesn't need monthly repairs. Stability is the new American dream. Other days, I get angry. At the system. At the boomers who call us lazy. At the way job listings ask for 10 years of experience for an entry-level salary. At the voice in my own head that says maybe I should have picked a different major, taken fewer risks, settled for something safer. But even safety costs money. To cope, I write sometimes. Late at night, when the noise of the day has quieted and the weight of the world feels a little less crushing. I write stories about the life I could have had. A version of me who made it out. Who owns a house with a porch and a dog and a record collection? Who tips well? Who travels? Who breathes easier? Those stories help. They're not solutions, but they're a form of resistance. A way of saying, I'm still here. I still believe in better. I'm not giving up. I'm just tired. And I wish that didn't feel like weakness. Maybe someday things will change. Maybe policies will shift, wages will rise, rent will stabilize. Maybe I'll look back at this chapter and marvel at how I survived it. But right now, all I can do is keep going. Wake up. Go to work. Say no when I need to. Say yes when I can. And hold tight to the hope that this version of my life, this unrelenting balancing act, isn't the whole story. Just a chapter. Not the end. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I'm 27, and most mornings I wake up with a knot in my stomach that tightens the second I check my bank account. It's not dramatic, it's routine now. Like brushing my teeth or putting on the cheapest deodorant I could find on sale at the discount store. Anxiety has become part of my daily hygiene. I live in a small studio apartment in a city I used to romanticize when I was younger, back when I thought making it just meant having a job, maybe some plants on the windowsill, and a place of my own. I do have a job, technically. I work full-time as a customer service rep for an e-commerce company. It's remote, which sounds like a privilege until you realize it also means I'm paying for my own electricity, my own internet, and have to somehow concentrate while my upstairs neighbor seems to be either training for a tap dancing competition or just permanently rearranging furniture. After taxes, insurance, and deductions, I bring in about $2,200 a month. Rent alone is $1,450. That leaves me with $750 for everything else: utilities, food, transportation, my student loan payment, which restarted this year, and any emergencies that don't care whether I budgeted for them. Spoiler, I never have. Most days, I meal prep like it's a second job. Rice, beans, frozen vegetables, whatever I can stretch. I've started to become someone who gets excited about finding a dented can for half off. My coffee is made at home, and I haven't ordered delivery in almost 8 months. Not because I don't want to, but because it feels reckless to spend $18 on pad thai when I know my phone bill is due in 4 days. It's like every swipe of my debit card echoes in my head for hours after. I used to write poetry. That was my dream, actually, to teach creative writing at a community college and maybe publish a chapbook. But somewhere between working 2 part-time jobs during college and graduating into a pandemic economy, I put my poems in a box under my bed and told myself I'd come back for them later. I haven't opened that box in 2 years. Instead, my creative energy goes into scanning apps for grocery discounts and timing the bus so I can save on gas. I still write, I guess, but it's mostly emails explaining why I can't make plans, or journaling at 2 a.m. when I can't sleep because I'm wondering how long I can go without health insurance before something breaks. I've got a cracked tooth I've been ignoring for a year. What really wears on me is the feeling of falling behind in a race I didn't know I signed up for. My parents weren't rich, but they had 1 job each and owned a house by the time they were my age. They tell me to just save a little every month. I want to scream when I hear that. Save what? I keep trying to make a budget, but the numbers are so tight they squeak. Something always throws it off. Last month, it was the electric bill being $40 more than expected because of a heat wave. Before that, my bus card snapped in half, and replacing it cost more than I could spare that week. There's this invisible ceiling I keep hitting. I do everything right, or I try to, no luxuries, no spontaneous trips, no new clothes unless it's a dire necessity. And yet, I'm still stuck. Promotions at work are rare and pay bumps even rarer. I tried applying for better jobs, but most want degrees I can't afford or experience I didn't get because I was too busy surviving. It's like the system is rigged to keep people like me at the base of the pyramid, holding it up. I haven't been on a vacation in years. Sometimes, I walk around the nicer neighborhoods just to pretend. I stare at the condos with their balconies full of succulents and wonder what it must be like to come home to a space that doesn't stress you out. I used to want to travel the world, see Europe, maybe teach English abroad. Now, my biggest goal is to pay off my credit card before I'm 30. There are moments of light. A friend surprises me with a coffee, or I find a thrift store gem that fits like it was meant for me. Sometimes I catch the golden hour hitting the skyline just right and remember why I moved here in the first place. Those little things keep me going. They have to. I've learned to find pride in small victories, negotiating my internet bill down $10, or getting a refund from a company after being on hold for an hour. It's not glamorous, but in a world where I feel powerless so often, those wins matter. They remind me I still have fight in me. Still, I grieve. I grieve the version of me that believed passion would pay off. I miss being able to make decisions without fear. Even mundane things, like saying yes to a friend's birthday dinner, come with a mental math equation and a pang of guilt. I'm tired, but I'm not hopeless. I try to believe that things can change. Maybe not all at once, but gradually. I've started freelancing on the side, writing copy for small businesses. It's not poetry, but it's words, and it gives me a taste of the life I wanted. I've started reading again, even if it's just a few pages before bed. I hold on to the idea that there's still time to dream differently. Sometimes, the future feels like a hallway with no doors. Other times, it feels like maybe, just maybe, there's a window cracked open somewhere. And if I keep pushing, keep climbing, I'll reach it. Until then, I keep waking up, checking my bank account, breathing through the panic, and making the cheapest cup of coffee I can. Because that's what survival looks like right now. I never imagined that budgeting would become a form of survival, not just a skill. Back in college, when I was living on instant noodles and dreams, I thought the tough times were temporary. That once I graduated, got a job, and joined the real world, things would balance out. But here I am, 5 years post-graduation, working 2 jobs, and still unable to breathe financially. The math never seems to work in my favor: rent, groceries, student loans, and now car repairs I can't afford. Every month feels like a high-wire act over an empty safety net. I'm 27, live in a 1-bedroom apartment with my partner in a mid-sized city that used to be affordable. We chose this place because of the reasonable rent 2 years ago, but the landlord has upped it twice since then. Just last month, a notice came, another $150 increase starting July. We sat at the kitchen table in silence after reading it. There's no room in our budget for more rent. We've already cut down everything, no subscriptions, no eating out, barely any heat in winter, and still we scrape the bottom of our checking account most months. It's not just stressful. It's exhausting. I work at a nonprofit as a program coordinator. I believe in the work we do, youth mentorship, educational equity, but the pay is barely enough to cover my half of the rent and bills. So, 3 nights a week and every other weekend, I bartend downtown. It's not glamorous. The shifts run late, the customers can be rude or grabby, and some nights I come home with more bruises than tips. But the extra money keeps us afloat. My partner, Eli, freelances in graphic design. They're incredibly talented, but freelance income is like the weather, impossible to predict and often disappointing. Some months they bring in a few thousand, and some months, nothing. They apply for full-time work, but the job market is vicious. Entry-level jobs now require 5 years of experience and pay less than what I made part-time in college. It's demoralizing. For both of us. What eats at me most isn't just the struggle. It's the constant decision fatigue. Every purchase is a question. Can we afford this? Should we wait until next paycheck? Is this a need or a want? I calculate the price of everything in hours worked. A new pair of jeans? That's 3 hours behind the bar. Groceries for the week? 8 hours at the nonprofit. One unexpected dental bill last year set us back for months. We skipped meals, borrowed money, maxed out one of our credit cards just to get by. We used to dream of owning a house one day. Nothing fancy, just a small place with a garden where we could grow tomatoes and have a dog. That dream feels ridiculous now, even embarrassing to admit. A house down the block just sold for $620,000. Our combined income doesn't even crack half that. The down payment alone is more than what we make in a year after taxes. We also wanted to travel, to see the world while we're still young. We talk about it sometimes, what it'd be like to hike through Iceland or eat our way through Vietnam, but those conversations feel like reading fairy tales aloud. Beautiful, but completely out of reach. I feel stuck in a loop I never agreed to be in. Prices rise. Wages don't. The government debates student loan forgiveness like it's some abstract concept, while we live the consequences every day. I've deferred my loans 3 times now, and interest keeps piling up like sand in a storm. It's hard not to feel like we're being punished for trying to do things the right way, go to school, get a job, work hard. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was designed, to keep people like us from getting ahead. Some days I cope by ignoring it. I focus on the small wins, getting a good deal at the grocery store, making it to the end of the month without overdrafting, hearing a kid I mentor say they want to go to college. Other days I cry in the bathroom at work, wipe my face, and go back to a meeting like nothing happened. Eli and I try to make time for joy. We go on long walks, cook new recipes with discount produce, watch movies at home under blankets. We laugh a lot. That's what saves us, I think. That and the stubborn belief that maybe, somehow, things will get better. But it's hard. I don't want to sugarcoat it. Living with this kind of pressure changes you. It makes you smaller in some ways, less spontaneous, more cautious. You don't dream big when every day feels like a battle just to keep the lights on. You dream about breathing room. About not having to choose between groceries and gas. About getting through 1 month without a new emergency. I'm not hopeless. Not yet. But I'm tired. Tired of working so hard and feeling like I'm standing still. Tired of feeling ashamed for struggling. Tired of hearing politicians talk about middle-class families like we even count. I want to believe there's a way out, that someday I'll be able to take a vacation without guilt, or buy a new coat without dread, or sleep through the night without mentally reviewing my bank account. I want to believe that our generation won't be the first in a century to end up poorer than our parents. That maybe, just maybe, things will shift. But until then, I wake up, pack my lunch, and go to work. Because hope doesn't pay the bills, but it gets me out the door. Most mornings start with the same routine. I wake up to the sound of my cracked phone buzzing on the nightstand, check my bank app out of habit, and wince. I don't even know why I check it anymore, it's always the same. Low balance, 1 or 2 pending charges I forgot about, and a sinking feeling in my chest that's become so familiar, it's like background noise. I'm 27, college graduate, 2 part-time jobs. I used to think I'd be on my way to something by now. A career, maybe. Or at least my own place that didn't come with peeling walls and a stove that makes a weird clanking sound every time I use it. But I share a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 roommates in a part of the city that smells like garbage in the summer and loneliness in the winter. Rent eats nearly half of my monthly income. The rest disappears into groceries that somehow keep getting more expensive, my student loan payment that feels like a punishment for trying to better myself, and the endless loop of just one more month utility bills. I walk to work now, about 45 minutes each way, because gas is a luxury I can't always afford. This isn't what I imagined when I was 17 and full of hope. I wanted to be a graphic designer, dreamed of freelancing, traveling with just my laptop, and building a portfolio that would turn heads. I still do freelance gigs on weekends, wedding invites, social media templates, the occasional logo, but clients want fast and cheap, and there's only so much I can give when I'm already burned out from shifts at the cafe and stocking shelves at the grocery store. What gets me the most isn't the tiredness. It's the way the pressure squeezes you until your dreams don't even feel like yours anymore. They become things you hide on the shelf of your mind, next to the books you haven't read and the clothes you'll wear when you get there. I try to be grateful. I have a roof over my head, work, health, but it's hard to keep gratitude alive when the weight of just surviving makes your chest hurt. It's not like I'm irresponsible. I budget. I track every expense in a spreadsheet. I cut my own hair in the bathroom mirror because even a $20 haircut feels indulgent. I bring leftovers to work in a plastic container with a cracked lid. I haven't bought new clothes in over a year. Every dollar is accounted for, yet it still feels like I'm bleeding money. The worst days are when something unexpected happens, a toothache, a leak under the sink, a friend's birthday dinner I can't afford but feel guilty missing. Those are the days I sit on my mattress on the floor bed and cry into a pillow so my roommates don't hear. Not because of the money, exactly, but because of what it takes from you, your time, your peace, your sense of possibility. Dating? I've pretty much given up. It's hard to feel confident when your idea of a night out is splitting fries and sipping water to save money. I miss the intimacy of being known, but it's hard to show someone your heart when it's already broken by 1,000 tiny cuts. Sometimes I fantasize about what I'd do if money wasn't always tight. I'd sleep without that knot in my stomach. I'd take a class I'm interested in, not because it's worth it financially, but because I want to learn. I'd visit my grandma more often without worrying about the cost of gas. I'd buy groceries without constantly switching things out at the register to stay under budget. Coping is a work in progress. I journal, sometimes. I take walks when I can. I try not to numb out with endless scrolling, but it's hard not to disappear into my phone when the real world feels like it's chewing me up. My friends are in similar boats. We vent over instant coffee and dollar store cookies, and sometimes we laugh so we don't cry. There's a quiet solidarity in knowing you're not the only one trying to keep your head above water in an ocean that never stops rising. But it also makes me angry, because it shouldn't be this way. We did what we were told, went to school, worked hard, followed the rules. But the rules were rigged, and now we're drowning while being told to just swim harder. Still, I haven't let go completely. Hope, though bruised and tired, still flickers inside me. I apply for jobs I'm not sure I'll get. I enter design contests. I pitch ideas to small businesses. I hold on to this belief, maybe naive, maybe stubborn, that one day, I'll break through. One day I'll have enough margin in my life to breathe. To rest. To dream without restraint. Until then, I survive the best way I can, one day, $1, one quiet act of resistance at a time. I used to think that if I followed the rules, went to college, worked hard, stayed out of trouble, life would kind of just work out. I guess that belief came from watching movies where people started in tiny apartments eating ramen but ended up in spacious lofts with framed art and artisanal coffee. They never told us that the ramen might stick around longer than expected. I'm 27 now. I live in a 380 square foot apartment in a part of the city where sirens are the soundtrack to sleep. It's nothing fancy, a mattress on the floor, one window that sticks in the summer, and a hand-me-down love seat from a friend who moved in with their partner and suddenly had too much stuff. I laugh at that sometimes, what it must be like to have too much. I work 2 jobs. During the day, I'm a customer support rep for a tech startup. Remote, thankfully, though that just means my bedroom is also my office. At night, I bartend at a dive down the street. It's mostly regulars, mostly tired people like me. We don't talk about dreams. We talk about tips, shifts, and rent. Rent went up again this year. That makes it 5 years in a row. Meanwhile, my salary's grown a grand total of $3,200 since I graduated. That's before taxes. After rent, utilities, student loan payments, groceries, and transit, I have about $42 left each month. And that's if nothing breaks, no copays pop up, and I don't allow myself even a single indulgence like a movie ticket or a dinner out. Everything feels like a negotiation. Eggs or gas? Toothpaste now or payday? If I take the train, I save on gas, but it adds 40 minutes to my commute. If I skip lunch, I can maybe afford my friend's birthday drinks next weekend, assuming I nurse 1 beer and Venmo my share before my card balance posts. There's this constant tightness in my chest. It's not panic, not exactly. More like a low-grade hum of dread. Like my body knows something's wrong before my mind does. I wake up with it. Go to bed with it. Carry it into conversations, into sleep, into the few dreams I can still afford to entertain. I used to want to write. I mean, seriously write. Stories, essays, maybe even screenplays. I imagined myself holed up in a cozy cafe, headphones on, fingers flying across the keys while rain hit the windows. I wanted to write about people like me, people scraping by, hoping for more. But writing doesn't pay. Not right away. Not for a long time and not consistently. So instead, I journal in the Notes app on my phone, squeezing out fragments between support tickets and cocktail orders. I keep thinking, later. When things stabilize. When there's room to breathe. But the room never comes. The walls just press in tighter. I see the impact everywhere. Friends getting married, buying homes, having kids, or choosing not to, because how can you bring someone new into a world you can barely afford to live in yourself? One of my oldest friends just left the country. Said he was tired of the grind here, tired of a system that promises everything and delivers nothing but debt. He sends me pictures from Portugal sometimes, sunlit streets, markets with fresh produce for a quarter of what I pay. He looks lighter. Freer. I think about leaving, too. But even moving requires money I don't have. Deposits, travel, finding a job, a place to live. It's like trying to jump out of a sinking boat but realizing all the lifeboats are pay to enter. So I cope how I can. Cheap instant coffee. A playlist of songs that remind me of simpler times. Rewatching comfort shows I practically memorized. Once a week, I let myself walk through the fancy grocery store just to imagine a life where organic fruit and $6 bread are within reach. I call my mom when I can, though I leave out the worst parts. She worked 2 jobs too, back when I was little, and I don't want her to feel like I'm stuck in the same loop. But some days, it feels like we're all just actors in a play we didn't audition for, reciting lines someone else wrote. I'm not lazy. I'm not entitled. I just can't seem to outpace the math. And yet, I hold on. To what, I'm not sure. Maybe just the hope that one day, something will give, that the system will bend, or that I'll find a crack to squeeze through. Maybe I'll finish that short story I started 6 months ago. Maybe I'll finally apply to that fellowship I bookmarked last year. Maybe I'll save enough for a weekend trip somewhere quiet. Maybe, someday, I'll wake up and that tightness in my chest will be gone. For now, I get up, pour the coffee, and log in. Because what else can you do, when the dream feels far away, but the day keeps knocking anyway? Some days, it feels like I'm running on a treadmill set to a speed I didn't choose, with the incline increasing every week. I'm 27, and I still live in the same apartment I moved into straight out of college, a studio that smells like old radiator steam in the winter and fried food in the summer because the vents connect to the diner downstairs. Rent's gone up 3 times since I moved in. My paycheck? Not once. At least not in a meaningful way. I work as a junior analyst for a logistics company, a job I landed 2 years after graduating with a business degree that cost me more than a new car and has me tethered to nearly $70,000 in student loans. I make just enough to cover rent, bills, and the minimum payments on my loans. That's it. No cushion. No savings. No just in case. Every morning starts with a cup of coffee I brew at home, not because I prefer it that way, but because $4.25 at the cafe around the corner is something I can't justify anymore. When I get dressed, I pull on the same pair of black slacks I've worn to work 3 times this week. The hem's coming loose, but I keep forgetting to sew it up. Or maybe I just don't want to look too closely. It feels easier to ignore the unraveling when I've already accepted that, in a way, I'm unraveling too. Groceries are a negotiation with myself. Do I really need fresh produce this week, or can I survive on frozen vegetables again? Can I stretch this $50 to last 10 days? It's a kind of math I never imagined I'd be doing in my late 20s. Not after being told in high school and college that if I just studied hard and got my degree, the rest would fall into place. But it didn't. The economy, the inflation, the cost of everything, it's like the rules changed the moment I graduated. My older coworkers talk about buying their first home at my age. I can't even imagine that. I lie awake at night wondering if I'll ever pay off my loans, if I'll ever earn enough to move into a 1-bedroom, let alone own anything. Dating? That's a luxury. I've canceled more dates than I've gone on. It's not because I don't want connection. God, I do. But what do I have to offer? A walk in the park because I can't afford dinner? A movie night on my laptop because theater tickets are out of reach? Sometimes I feel like I'm waiting for a version of myself that can afford to be loved, which is a heavy and lonely way to think. My friends and I joke about it, dark humor, memes about eating the rich, or laughing about how our generation will never retire. But underneath the jokes is a fatigue we all share. We don't dream in full color anymore. We dream in grayscale, just hoping for stability, not luxury. I wanted to be a writer once. That was the big dream. I used to fill notebooks with story ideas and spend weekends at cafes drafting characters, plots, and arcs. But now my creative energy goes into budgeting spreadsheets and emailing landlords about maintenance that never happens. That part of me, the one who believed in art and inspiration, feels like she's been evicted. I keep telling myself it's temporary. That when I'm more stable, I'll write again. But what if that day never comes? There's a particular shame in admitting you're not okay financially, especially when you're educated, employed, and supposedly doing everything right. It feels like failure, even when you know it's systemic. Even when you know millions are in the same boat. That knowledge doesn't always suit the sting of checking your bank account and seeing less than $30 with 4 days until payday. How do I cope? I remind myself to breathe. I write little notes on my bathroom mirror, things like "you're doing your best" or "survival is a form of resistance." I call my sister when the walls feel too close. I walk, sometimes for hours, just to get out of my apartment and into the air, where things don't cost anything and I can remember that the sky is still free. There's still a part of me that hopes. That's what I hold on to most fiercely. Hope that I'll climb out of this, one careful step at a time. That one day I'll earn enough to save, to travel, to be generous without fear. That I'll write again. That I'll feel free again, not just from debt, but from the constant weight of calculating every choice in dollars and cents. But for now, I wake up. I do the math. I show up to work. I make my coffee. I wear the slacks with the loose hem. I survive. And on the days when surviving feels like too much, I remind myself, it's not my fault. I'm not broken. I'm just a person trying to live inside a system that was never built for me to thrive in. And still, I try. I never imagined that by the time I hit 26, I'd feel so exhausted by just living. It's like every day I wake up knowing I'm running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, but no matter how hard I run, I'm stuck in the same spot, or worse, slipping backwards. The bills, the rent, the groceries, they all rise faster than my paycheck, and I'm left juggling what little I have with a desperate hope it will stretch just a bit further. I work full-time at a call center, which pays decently enough to cover the basics, but anything beyond that is a luxury I can't afford. A few years ago, I was optimistic. I thought, once I finish this project at work, maybe I can ask for a raise. Maybe I'll save up for a small trip or finally buy that laptop I've wanted. Now, it feels naive to think about those things. Every dollar is already earmarked for something urgent: rent, utilities, the broken down car that I can't fix because parts cost more than I have. The economic landscape is unforgiving. Inflation isn't just a number I hear on the news, it's the sour taste in my mouth when I'm at the grocery store and the total is almost twice what it was last year for the same cart of food. It's the sinking feeling when the landlord emails a rent increase notice, and I have to figure out where to shave off another $100 a month from my already tight budget. It's the guilt when I can't even entertain the idea of buying a birthday gift for my little sister because I'm still paying off last month's credit card balance. I remember sitting at my kitchen table one night, staring at a pile of unopened bills, feeling the walls close in around me. The numbers were overwhelming: utilities, phone, internet, the student loan payment I thought I'd pay off years ago but still haunt me like a shadow. I broke down and cried, not because I was weak but because the pressure was relentless. It's hard to explain this kind of exhaustion to someone who hasn't felt it. It's not just physical fatigue, it's a deep, gnawing anxiety that creeps into every corner of your life, making it hard to sleep, to concentrate, even to hope. The weight of the system feels suffocating. It's like I'm caught in a machine designed to keep me barely afloat, always one step behind. The minimum wage jobs, the skyrocketing rents, the endless fees and hidden costs, all of it adds up to a life where I have to sacrifice pieces of myself just to survive. I've had to give up on dreams, and that's the hardest part. I wanted to go back to school, to finally finish my degree and maybe change my career path. But tuition isn't just a price tag, it's a mountain I can't climb right now. I postponed those dreams because I'm stuck paying off debts and covering rent, and I'm afraid that if I step off this treadmill for even a moment, I'll fall behind forever. Social life has also taken a hit. I avoid invitations to dinners or movies because they feel like luxuries I can't afford. My friends understand, but sometimes I feel isolated, like I'm on the outside looking in. There's a quiet shame in admitting you can't keep up, and I'm tired of feeling embarrassed about money, as if it's a personal failure rather than a systemic problem. Coping isn't easy. I try to find small ways to manage. Cooking at home instead of eating out, taking long walks instead of paying for the gym, cutting back on streaming services, canceling subscriptions one by one. I've learned to live with discomfort as a constant companion. But some nights, when the apartment is silent and I'm alone with my thoughts, the loneliness and fear wash over me in waves. Yet, even in this struggle, I hold on to a fragile hope. I remind myself that this is a phase, even if it's a long and painful one. I think about the future, not the distant, perfect future I once imagined, but a future where I can breathe a little easier. Maybe one day, I'll have the freedom to make choices without fear, to travel, to explore new opportunities without the constant worry about the next bill. Sometimes, I write down these hopes, like a secret prayer, to be free from this relentless cycle, to build a life where I don't have to choose between food and medicine, or work overtime and sleep. To wake up without dread. It feels fragile, but it's the only thing that keeps me moving forward. Being young and broke isn't just about money. It's about the invisible chains of a system that values profit over people, about dreams deferred, and the quiet battles fought in silence. But sharing this story, admitting the struggle, is my way of reclaiming a bit of control. Maybe someone else feels this too. Maybe, together, we can find a way to push back against the tide and create a future where survival doesn't feel like a full-time job. Until then, I keep running on this treadmill, hoping that one day, the speed will slow, and I'll finally move forward. I wake up every morning with a familiar knot in my stomach. It's not quite panic, not quite dread, it's this heavy, persistent weight that sits just behind my ribs, reminding me that today, like every day, I have to face the same impossible math: bills versus income, needs versus wants, survival versus hope. I'm 27, and yet I feel like I've been trapped in this relentless cycle of financial pressure for years. It's not just numbers on a screen or pieces of paper, it's the way my entire day, my every decision, seems dictated by money slipping through my fingers faster than I can hold on to it. The cost of living feels like a rising tide that keeps pulling me under. Rent goes up, groceries get more expensive, the gas station prices climb again, and somehow my paycheck stays the same. I've tried to cut back, tighten my belt, get rid of any non-essential spending, but it never feels like enough. I've stopped counting how many times I've skipped meals or chosen instant noodles over fresh food because it's cheaper and lasts longer. I've watched friends move into their own apartments, buy cars, travel, or even just enjoy nights out, and I wonder how they manage it. Sometimes I feel like I'm running a race where the finish line keeps moving further away. Most mornings, I get up early to get to my job on time, a modest gig that pays just enough to keep me afloat but not enough to catch a break. I work as a customer service rep, a role that demands patience I don't always have, and empathy that's worn thin from stress. The job isn't fulfilling, but it's stable, or as stable as things get these days. Still, the income barely covers rent and utilities. I have a small pile of debt, some student loans, a credit card I rely on when things get tight, and a few unexpected expenses like a car repair last winter. Every month, I scrape to make minimum payments, which means the interest grows, and so does the burden. Financial pressure colors everything, even simple things like going to the grocery store. I plan my shopping list obsessively, looking for sales and generic brands, calculating how many meals I can stretch from a single purchase. Fresh fruit? Sometimes a luxury. A warm meal? I try to cook at home, but it's hard to resist the convenience of takeout when I'm exhausted after work and still have bills to sort out. I constantly weigh the cost of every choice. Do I buy new shoes or fix the ones I have? Can I afford a bus ticket or should I walk and save that money? It's exhausting. Sometimes, I feel ashamed to admit this. I grew up believing that hard work leads to success, that if you're smart and persistent, you can rise above your circumstances. But reality is harsher. The system feels rigged, designed to keep people like me spinning in place. Inflation outpaces raises, opportunities are scarce, and the safety nets seem threadbare or unreachable. I feel stuck in a maze where every turn leads to more bills, more stress, and more uncertainty. I remember the dreams I used to have, though. They feel distant now, like echoes from another life. I wanted to go back to school, study something I loved, maybe graphic design or writing. I dreamed of traveling, seeing places beyond my city, experiencing new cultures, and just feeling free. I imagined owning a little apartment where I could decorate and feel truly at home. But those dreams have been postponed again and again. Every time I think about saving for something big, something meaningful, an unexpected expense pulls me back, a rent increase threatens my stability, or my paycheck just isn't enough. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. There are days when I feel defeated, overwhelmed by the pressure and the loneliness that financial struggles bring. It's hard to talk about money when you're barely managing it, it feels like admitting failure. Friends don't always understand, especially if their lives look more stable or prosperous. I sometimes isolate myself, not wanting to be a burden or appear weak. Yet, on better days, I find small sparks of hope, moments when I remind myself that this is not forever. I try to celebrate the little wins, managing to pay off a credit card balance, finding a small side gig to earn a few extra bucks, or even just getting through a week without going into overdraft. To cope, I've developed routines and small rituals that help me feel some control. Budgeting has become almost a hobby, strangely enough, as I track every penny with an almost obsessive precision. I lean on podcasts and books about personal finance and mental health, looking for ways to improve or at least survive this financial storm. Sometimes, I vent here, to a journal or a friend, admitting how tired I am of constantly struggling. It helps, but the pressure never fully lifts. What keeps me going? It's the belief that one day, things will get better, that there's more to life than this suffocating cycle. I remind myself that my worth isn't measured by my bank account, and that my dreams are still valid, even if they're delayed. I hold on to the hope that I'll find a way out, maybe through a better job, education, or even just a break in circumstances. For now, I take it one day at a time, trying to be kind to myself and patient with a system that feels designed to grind me down. Being trapped in this financial pressure feels like a slow, exhausting battle, but I'm still here, still fighting. And maybe, that's enough for now. I never imagined that at 26, I'd feel so caught in a grind that seems to tighten with every breath I take. When I was a kid, I dreamed big, owning a cozy home with a small garden, taking spontaneous road trips, maybe even starting a little side business selling something I loved. But now, those dreams feel like distant stars, visible, sure, but so impossibly far away they might as well not exist. Living through this ongoing financial pressure is like being trapped in a thick fog that never lifts. Every morning, I wake up knowing I have to balance my paycheck against a mountain of expenses that somehow keep growing faster than my income. It's like running on a treadmill set to speed up every time you think you've caught up. The rent is a beast I feed monthly, and each time it grows, I'm forced to cut back somewhere else: groceries, utilities, even the small joys I used to allow myself. Some days, I feel like I'm just existing to pay bills. The electric bill skyrocketed last winter, and I remember huddling under blankets in my apartment because I was too scared to turn the heat up. The gas for the stove, the internet I need for work, the little bits and pieces that make life manageable, it all piles up. When I first moved out, I thought budgeting was something I'd master quickly. Now, it feels like a constant battle, like a puzzle with missing pieces. The economic environment makes every decision feel like a negotiation with my own limits. I can't afford to eat out, or even order delivery, which feels like such a basic comfort for most people my age. Social invitations often come with a silent weight, the unspoken pressure of, can I afford this? I sometimes say no, but other times I push myself to say yes, hoping a night out will make the grind feel less suffocating. Then, the guilt kicks in the next day when I see the bank account dipping too low. It's not just about money, it's the emotional weight that accumulates. Worry is a constant companion. It's exhausting to carry that low-level anxiety day after day, knowing that if something unexpected happens, a car repair, a medical bill, or even a lost shift at work, the whole fragile balance could crumble. Sleep doesn't come easy when your mind races through all the what-ifs. I've become more withdrawn, less optimistic, because hope feels like a luxury I can't afford. I remind myself to breathe and find small ways to cope. I've started journaling to keep my thoughts from spiraling. Sometimes I meet friends for cheap coffee or a walk in the park, just to feel human again. Those moments are precious, like brief pockets of sunlight on a cloudy day. But even those have their limits when money is so tight. The system feels designed to keep people like me in place, a cycle that's impossible to break. I work a full-time job that barely covers my essentials. I've taken on side gigs, trying to patch the gaps, but they're exhausting and pay just enough to scrape by. I've applied for raises, but the company says budgets are tight, a phrase that feels like a personal rejection, even though I know it's not. It's hard not to internalize it, to feel stuck. I watch the news, hear about inflation rising, rent prices climbing, interest rates fluctuating. Each headline adds to my fear rather than easing it. The cost of living grows relentlessly, but my paycheck stays stubbornly the same. I'm paying off student loans, which feel like a shackle to a past decision I made with hope. I want to believe I'm investing in my future, but right now, it feels like I'm just paying off the past. Dreams I once nurtured are now shelved, buying a car, saving for a trip, even thinking about moving to a better neighborhood. Sometimes, I wonder if I'll ever get to those things or if they're just fantasies I tell myself to stay sane. I'm constantly postponing, pushing the hope for a better life further into the distance. But despite all this, I hold on to a fragile thread of hope. I remind myself that my worth isn't defined by my bank balance. I try to focus on the things I can control, skills I'm developing, relationships I'm nurturing, small victories like paying off a bill on time or sticking to my budget for a month. Those feel like tiny rebellions against the system that tries to keep me down. I dream of a day when money won't dictate every decision, when I can breathe without the constant pressure of financial survival. Maybe that means finding a better job, or starting a business on my own terms. Maybe it means moving somewhere more affordable or finding a community that supports each other through hard times. I don't have the answers yet, but I cling to those dreams like a lifeline. For now, I keep pushing forward, day by day. I keep reminding myself that I'm not alone, that many others feel this weight too, even if we don't always talk about it. Maybe one day, the fog will lift, and I'll finally see those distant stars a little closer. Until then, I keep running on that treadmill, hoping that every step I take is one step closer to freedom. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.